As the 1970s dwindled, the number of members in Beth Israel did as well. The same dynamic had struck the nearby congregation Beth Hillel. The changing demographics would lead to a merger between the two shuls, and with this we enter the final era of the Munich-Nuremberg-Fürth synagogue. In telling the combined histories of congregations Beth Hillel and Beth Israel, I would need to speak to those who experienced the merging of these shuls and their entry into their final era. On a frigid wintry morning, I arranged a meeting with an old family friend, Mr. Albert Blank. Albert's parents met and married in that shul. Albert's father, Mr. William Blank, was the president of this shul and held many other positions there over the years. Albert grew up in Beth Hillel, had his bar mitzvah there, and assisted the different rabbis through the years, learning from them all. This was his shul until the day it closed. We would meet within the hallowed walls of what was once Beth Hillel, today a discount store.
The rabbi at the time was Rabbi Stransky, who was the one that I grew up with. He had succeeded Rabbi Verwald. Rabbi Stransky came in 1958, and he was there until 1976 when he retired. He just retired. He didn't want to continue being the rabbi anymore. I remember very clearly spending quite a bit of time with him in 1976, my last year in high school, going over various parts of the Gemara. Rabbi Stransky retired, and he was succeeded by Rabbi Abraham Hartstein. Okay, Rabbi Hartstein was actually the rabbi from 76 until 80 when we merged. Rabbi Hartstein was a graduate of YU, lived up in the projects in 11 Fort George Hill. Came every morning, came every evening, led the congregation through those years of decline, as I mentioned earlier, because eventually in 1980 we had to merge together with Rabbi Kahn's shul, and they were both, Rabbi Hartstein and Rabbi Kahn, were co-rabbis for about a year and a half, when we realized we really did not need two rabbis anymore, and Rabbi Hartstein gracefully stepped aside, took a job someplace else. Rabbi Kahn became the main rabbi, probably because of the fact that he was German-born and was able to connect a lot better with our members. That was not necessarily a knock on Rabbi Hartstein, it's just there was a natural connection there. And that's when Rabbi Kahn really came to the fore as the number one rabbi. I became very close with Rabbi Kahn. I think about him quite often. I learned a tremendous amount from him. I think what made him unique was the way that he treated all of his members, especially the young people. He was great with young people. He spent a tremendous amount of time with them, shaping them, molding them.
One of the most important historical records of any old shul is found on its memorial plaques, which line the walls with the names of past generations. As congregations merge and communities dwindle, those names, like the living congregants, are carried elsewhere.
The idea was to have them continue the legacy of the shul in terms of taking care of the memorial tablets. We had many memorial. We had 4 original memorial tablets from Beis Hillel with hundreds of memorial plates on there. We took some over at the time from Beis Israel. We also had stained glass windows. It was a very important part of the merger agreement to keep the memory of these people alive. Many of them had no relatives, not just the ones that were killed in the war, but there were plenty others who didn't have children, unfortunately, because of the war situation. And that memorial tablet and putting on the light at Yatzeit and on Yom Kippur meant a lot to those family members that were still around, and also to the shamas of people that weren't here. My grandmother davened here, came every Shabbos. My grandparents, when they were here from Switzerland, obviously davened here whenever they came. So as I grew older, so in the 1980s and the 1990s, I was obviously very involved with the shul. My father was the chief gabbai of the shul, gave out the aliyahs, basically took care of everything. My father took care of everything in the shul. He also was the president of various stages of the shul, first at Beis Hillel, then afterwards, when we merged with Beis Israel. So I really got to learn the ins and outs of how to run a shul on a daily basis from my father.
The merger of the two congregations, Beth Hillel and Beth Israel, was consummated on May 10, 1980, Parshat Bahar B'Chukosai, with the first Shabbos service held in the newly refurbished interior. Many guests representing neighborhood congregations and organizations were present. Torahs were distributed to rabbis, officers, and trustees to hold. Cantor Mark Hess led the Shacharit service. Cantor Jack Schartenberg directed the synagogue choir and chanted the Musaf service. The highlight of the service was the solemn procession of the Sefer Torah scrolls. Rabbi Abraham L. Hartstein and Rabbi Shlomo Kahn delivered sermons, and President Oscar Wertzman addressed the congregation. Among the distinguished guests were Judge Herman Kahn, Mrs. Elizabeth Wurzberger, Rabbi Dr. Herman Glatt, Alan Risselheimer, Mr. Adolf Adler, Mr. Ludwig Katz, and representatives of the Inwood Hebrew congregation, Shari HaTikva, Avas Torah, Tikva Chadosha, Congregation Emes Tzedek, Hebrew Tabernacle, Kehilath Yaakov, Kahaladas Yeshurun, Oav Shalom, and Yeshiva University. The Sabbath service was permeated with faith, friendship, harmony, hope, piety, and peace, a harbinger of a fruitful future. I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Mark Hess, now living in Israel, about his memory of the merger. Mark was raised in Beth Israel but became the cantor at Beth Hillel as a young law student. His connection to both shuls was an important conduit to the merger, and he symbolically led the services that morning, while Cantor Schartenberg led the Musaf.
Beth Hillel didn't have a formal mechitza. They just had men and women sitting separately. My sense is that the merger was one of the most easy, polite, and kind of comfortable sort of thing because the people were very much similar. You know, the people at Beth Israel, Beth Israel was a more formal, Orthodox shul in every respect. The people of Beth Hillel, were in a shul without a mechitza, but there weren't too much other distinctions. The nusach was the same, and the laning was the same, and so even again, one technically maybe you'd call more of a conservative shul, and maybe one you'd call technically Orthodox, but the people themselves were very, very similar, probably somewhere in the middle in terms of their hashkafa and their observance and all that. I would say also that I think the Beth Hillel people were somewhat more educated than the people in Beth Israel. I think it's probably because they were more big city Jews in Germany, and the ones in Beth Israel maybe were more in the small towns. Yeah. And so I think the kind of adapting to America and to American customs and all that was somewhat easier for the Beth Hillel folks. They were kind of they typically spoke a more refined and better English than the Beth Israel people did. I should say, and you probably know this from other research you've done, Bill Blank was the driving force at Beth Hillel, right? But you can't undervalue, I think, the what he meant to the shul. Say the last 10 years that I was involved in the shul, he was really kept everything together.
But for me, this was a home away from home. Certainly, while I was growing up, I was before Bar Mitzvah, in my teen years, and then afterwards. And I was very grateful that I was able to spend as much time as I could because it really enhanced the lives of the German Jews that lived in this neighborhood, gave them something to look forward to, sort of a lifeline, which they really used until they passed away.
Hanukkah Sameach, Kol Tov, all the best. And good Shabbos. Bye-bye.
You see no connection to anything from the original shul.
Nothing.
It's been fully gutted out.
Totally gutted out. Again, the front was the stage,
Mm-hmm.
and then to the right were the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's upside down. And over here, where those doors are, that's where the kitchen was.
Mm-hmm.
But a little bit started out probably over here, though.
Started a little earlier.
Yeah, started a little earlier.